stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are gathered here this morning for a very special presentation. As the son of a disabled World War II veteran, I find these occasions especially meaningful, and I appreciate the effort each of you has made to join us. And now, it is my pleasure and my distinct honor to introduce a representative who is not only an outstanding advocate for his constituents, for Northeast Ohio, and for Hudson, but who is also a consistent voice for the eternal truths and principles upon which our great nation is founded. Our Congressman, the Honorable Steve Latourette.
Well, thank you very much, Council President Basil, and I don't know if you were in charge of the weather today, but you did a beautiful job.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it very much. Listen, this is one of the best things that I get to do as a member of Congress. And we're here today to honor and present a number of medals to U.S. Army Sergeant David Hack, some 43 years after he was wounded in Vietnam. I met Sergeant Hack. He's the CEO of U.S. Wings, which Mayor Ganzi from Boston Heights tells me it has a Hudson mailing address, but it's really in his town. So he's multi-jurisdictional. And I had the chance to meet Sergeant Hack a couple of years ago. Went down to his shop. He invited me down to his shop, showed me around, and I had no idea that a couple of years later we'd be here, because during that entire visit he never brought up the fact that he hadn't received his medal. With 4th of July just around the corner, I can't think of anything more appropriate than what we're going to do here this morning. I want to acknowledge a few people who have been kind enough to join us. Such as wife Lonnie is with us. His children, Brittany, Brooke, Brenton, and Christina. Someone who I've had the pleasure to know for a long period of time. He helped recruit in our district for the service academy, principally West Point, that comes out and does the orientation. He just told me that for several years running, the 14th District of Ohio, of which Hudson is part, beats the pants off of all other districts in the Great Lakes region when it comes to young men and women seeking to go into the service academy at West Point. So we're happy to have Bill with us today. Also happy to have with us, as you already met, City Council President Dave Basil. Ken Lewis, the state chaplain from the Purple Heart, is here. Tony Bales, who's the city manager of Hudson, and also Councilman Doug Hasbrook of Hudson as well. Mayor Rodden of Hiram down the road, and I mentioned Mayor Ganzi from Boston Heights. I also want to acknowledge Lieutenant General Bob Wagner, who is a 3-star retired Army general who now lives in Independence, served our country for 39 years, and is a former U.S. commander of Army Special Ops, and his career stretched from Vietnam to Iraq. Thank you, General Wagner, for joining us, for your extraordinary service to our country, and for joining us here to honor Sarge today. A little bit about our honoree before we ask him to come up. Sergeant David Hack spent 13 years defending our country. After high school at age 17, he joined the Coast Guard, served in Cape May, Hawaii, Wake Island, and the Central Pacific, and later did security for the Coast Guard in both Cape May and St. Louis before being honorably discharged. In 1964, Sergeant Hack enlisted in the Army and began training as an Army Ranger at Fort Benning, Georgia. That same year, 1964, Sarge was deployed to Vietnam and served in the 1st Infantry Division, and his job was as a combat career counselor. In 1968, he went to work as a bodyguard for 2-star General Major General Keith Ware. Plus, Sergeant Hack was also in charge of the protocol for the 1st Infantry Division. On Friday the 13th, 1968, Major General Ware, his 3 command staff, and 4 helicopter crew members were shot down by a rocket-propelled grenade and no survivors. Major General Ware was awarded the Medal of Honor and general officer to die in combat in Vietnam, who was posthumously awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. On that same day, Friday the 13th in September of 1968, Sergeant Hack was critically wounded when an American convoy headed to the front lines was ambushed. Not many survived the deadly attack, and Sergeant Hack was shot in the back, face, and right leg, and also suffered shrapnel and bayonet wounds inflicted by the North Vietnamese. In a life-saving twist of fate, however, Sergeant Hack had planned to be on the helicopter with Major General Ware, who was given orders to join his company on the personnel carriers headed to an area near An to meet up with the Major General. If the sergeant had been on the helicopter, he wouldn't have been with us today. After being found alive in the jungle, Sarge was stabilized in Vietnam and then airlifted to Japan for medical treatment. He was put on a hospital plane headed for Fort Bragg, where he expected to recuperate in the hospital. When he left Vietnam, a battered and grievously injured, Sergeant Hack said he knew he'd done his job, and he loved his country more than ever. On the way to Fort Bragg, the military hospital plane stopped at Andrews Air Force Base near Washington, D.C. to refuel. A colonel came on board and asked if any of the wounded veterans had any questions or a problem that he could help answer. Sergeant Hack raised his hand and explained that his family lived near Fort Knox in Kentucky and asked if it would be possible to be treated at Fort Knox to be closer to his home. He was just 28 years old. The colonel listened to his request, comforted Sarge, and said, "We're going to take care of you because you've taken care of us." Soon he was off to Fort Knox, where he spent a full year in the hospital, 5 surgeries to mend his devastating wounds. Many would have left the Army after this experience, but not Sergeant Hack. He was asked to be an Army recruiter, which he considered to be a great honor, came to Akron and spent years working as an Army recruiter. Even in 1969, with the country torn over the war in Vietnam, he signed up an average of 20 recruits a month. In Akron and Cuyahoga Falls, he retired after 9 years in the Army with a VA disability in 1973. Sergeant Hack has had a fascinating life since. He's owned 3 auto parts stores in Akron. He was a police officer here in Hudson. He worked at the Summit County Sheriff's Department and later became chief of police in Sebring, Ohio. He and his wife Lonnie started U.S. Wings in 1986 and are now known around the world and work with all branches of the military, creating made in the United States leather bomber jackets. Both President Bush 41 and President Bush 43 are customers, and his custom-made leather jackets are often used in Hollywood firms. So, why on earth are we here today to award medals to Sergeant David Hack more than 4 decades after he was medevaced out of Vietnam to Japan? Because in all that time, Sergeant Hack never slowed down, and he never gave a thought to getting his own medals. A colleague of his at U.S. Wings contacted our office to start the process, and I'm so glad that he did. Also with us today, and I was glad to introduce Sergeant Hack. Well, I'm just the name on the door. I'm a pretty face of the office. All the work is done by the people that work with me. And Ann Condis, who's here from the Painesville office, ran all the threads to make this presentation possible today, and I want to thank you, Ann, for doing that. I am so pleased to honor this Hudson resident and business owner, a great American and a true patriot for his military service, and to present him today with 7 medals that are long overdue. At this time, I would like to ask Sergeant Hack's family, if they'd like to, Sergeant Hack, and also General Wagner and Joe Willoughby, if you'd help me make the presentation. Come on up. We'll get this started. Come on up. Everybody's got to turn around and get this. What do you want? You want them in? You want them just in?
Nothing is sticking.
National Defense Service Medal, red, yellow ribbon, Next, Vietnam Service Medal with 3 Bronze Service Stars. Fourth, the Republic of Vietnam Campaign Ribbon with device 1960. Next, the Expert Badge with Rifle Bar.
I love that.
Next, the Army Recruiter ID Badge, Silver.
I'd like to this out to my fellow comrades out there. Proud of them.
Last but not least, our Olympic Gold Star Republic of Vietnam. It is my solemn honor to present to you the Purple Heart, 43 years now.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. I know it, that everyone has their own life. And I appreciate that you support myself and my family. And I'm glad that you are here. And I'm glad that I have friends such as you and such as my other friends that were not able to come here. But I'm very proud to be an American citizen. I'm very proud to be a Hudsonite. I'm very proud to have known the General. And Bill Willoughby, by the way, is retired from the United States Army. Bill was at YK where I was at. He also represents the United States Army and also has been a representative of the United States Army, Secretary of the Army for the past 35 years. And Bill is in charge of, not in charge, but has an awful lot to do with the appointees for West Point. And the General, General Wagner is a retired 3-star general, just retired. General Wagner spent 39 years in the United States Army. He's a 3-star general. He's in charge of all special operations, not only special ops as far as the special forces, but also all of the United States Army Rangers. So he indeed is a true hero. And of course, many years ago, I had received a letter from the Congressman. And in that letter, it was a very personal letter. And I was taken back by the way that he reached out to everyone in his own district. And it's an honor to have known the Congressman. It's an honor to know the Congressman. Thank you so much.
Mr. Sarge, before you go, for you and your family, we've also had a flag flown over the United States Capitol in honor of today's ceremony. Give that to you. And also a proclamation commemorating this day. And then, you know, you may have read that we have this little debt crisis going on in the United States of America, so we're trying to raise a lot of cash and balance the budget. And so we went to the gift shop and bought these things for you, Sarge. And so I don't think we got a whole lot closer, but we're a little closer today than we were yesterday. So thank you. Sergeant Hack, I want to thank you for your service to your country, and thank you for allowing all of us to be a part of this incredibly special occasion. May God bless our brave men and women in service here and around the world, and may God bless America. Thank you all very much for coming.
Hooray!
Well, the Congressman.
We'll do whatever we want.
We'll do whatever we want.
Are you really?
Aren't you so happy that the Congressman stepped up? He did this because you were touching. And that wasn't your only injury, I understood. I read somewhere that you had been actually wounded twice.
Correct. I had been wounded the first time. And I was down for a month. They put the uniforms on, they go off to work, they get a paycheck, and they go home. In the military, you put the uniform on and it stays on 24/7. You do whatever your country asks you to do. No sacrifice too great. And that's fine. It really is. Not everyone is meant to be in the armed forces. Not everyone is. And I can respect that and relate to that. But to me, as an individual, I think that is the highest honor we as people have, is be able to serve our country in a way to pay back, to give back, not by just words, but by actions. What makes a guy throw his body on a grenade? What makes a guy charge up a hill? What makes a guy push his buddy out of the way? Think about that. To me, that is honor. That's pride. That's dignity. That's self-esteem. That's respect. It's everything. And at the end of the day, I've always said the same thing. It isn't what you do for yourself, it's what you do for others. That's what's important, That's what's important. And you look at the mirror at the end of your life, and you can say one or two things. I did it for myself, or I did it to myself. And that's it. Plain and simple. And with that philosophy and that feeling, people will be so much better off going through their life. It's helping others, not helping yourself. Helping yourself is secondary. Helping others is number one priority. That's how I feel.
When you think about our troops now, I'm sure you are so proud. That same
Extremely
feeling comes
proud.
back.
I'm very proud because I feel that Vietnam veterans, we paved the way. Think about that. We paved the way. So many Vietnam veterans that came back from Vietnam, you asked them, were you in Vietnam? And they changed the subject. Because they didn't want someone thinking the worst of them. They changed the subject. But now they don't have to change the subject. Vietnam veterans don't have to change the subject. I myself never did change the subject. If a person asked, was I in Vietnam? My reply was, hell yes. I'm proud of it. Always have been, always will be.
Sergeant Hack, when you received the, I think they called it a silver medal for recruiting, you said that was very important to you.
Extremely important because it's what I did for others. It's how I helped other people. How I helped them go through life. Of all the people that I recruited, I only lost one person that was killed in combat. Only one. Because I put everyone in schools, I put everyone in different professions, I put everyone in different training, and that was my goal, is to help them out. Only one person was killed, and he was killed in his sleep with a mortar round that went into the building. And to me, that's important, is helping your fellow man. So being a recruiter, yes, it was extremely important, and very important to me now. Whenever the Army Recruiting Command calls me and asks if I could do something to help them, ask this gentleman right behind me. He's the Public Relations Director for the United States Army Recruiting Command for Ohio. I'm always there.
If you had to now weigh it, the two medals that you have now, the one for recruiting, the Purple Heart, the wounds that you sustained, which one means more to you?
It's two different medals. The Purple Heart is because you were wounded in combat. A recruiting command badge is what you did as a profession. It's two different things, so you don't weigh it. It's just like taking your son and your daughter. Which is more important? They're both important.
How long were you a recruiter again, Sergeant?
4 years.
And that was after you recovered.
I got out of the hospital in 1969. the Department of the Army came to me as a patient, and they says, how would you like to be an Army recruiter? And I said, you gotta be kidding. I said, me? No way, Jose. But anyway, they selected me, and then you had to be a combatant. You had to have gone through combat to be a recruiter. You had to be selected. And then I became a recruiter. I had to go to school, and I was a recruiter for 4 years. I was in Akron, Hudson, Kent, Cuyahoga Falls, all northeastern Ohio, and I would go around at different universities and talk. I went on Kent State in the uniform. I wore my uniform. I wasn't ashamed of it.
How long were you in the military total then?
13 years.
And that includes the recruiting, right?
Yes, I retired 100% disabled. I was on medical hold for 4 years. And at the end of the 4 years, I went ahead and took my retirement as an E7, Sergeant First Class. But I was on medical hold at that time. I had to go back and forth in the hospitals.
I know you didn't want to talk about your time in Vietnam, but it was kind of eerie when he said that this happened on Friday the 13th.
Well, I'm very fortunate because the other people, they're not here to talk about it. You know, a lieutenant, I was supposed to go with General Ware that day. And the lieutenant came up to me and he says, Sergeant Hack, meet us up there. And you catch a track, an armored personnel carrier. And I says, Lieutenant, the general wants me with him. And the lieutenant said, Sergeant Hack, I'm giving you a direct order. And everything else is history. He took my place. He got on it. If you go on Google, and do a search on Google under Audie Murphy / Major General Keith Ware, there's a whole story.
About that day that you were injured? Really?
And about, Major General Ware. Audie Murphy and Keith Ware were personal friends. They were very, very close. Both of them had the Medal of Honor. And Keith Ware was like a father to me. He was a very, very kind person and a good person.
I understand after your recruiting, you went on to other businesses.
I did.
Can you explain a little bit about that? What you've been doing since then?
And
what year did you stop?
County Sheriff's Office. And didn't tell anyone. Not even counsel. But I worked for Summit County Sheriff's Office for 10 years. My badge number was 6. And that's high hope. And I was there for 10 years. I enjoyed it. And then they asked me to go to Sebring, and they had some problems down there, and I went down there and I cleaned up a little town that's a little rough. And I was the chief of police there. And I came back, and I'm still owning parts stores. I own car parts stores. I own those, and then I got rid of the parts stores, and I went to Fort Myers, Florida. Stayed in Fort Myers, Florida for 7 years doing next to nothing. I mean, next to nothing, And at that time, my wife and I, Lonnie and I, it was my wife's idea to come up with U.S. Wings bomber jackets. And then after that, everything is history. 99% of all your aviation movies, those are our jackets. And we've supplied most of the presidents their jackets, and most of the candidates. And we supply the Australian Air Force, our Air Force, New Zealand Air Force. We supply the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Coast Guard, the Air Force, Homeland Security, ATF, DEA, FBI. We supply all federal agencies with their aviation equipment.
And you created?
My wife did.
Does anyone here have one on? Is there anyone here in the audience that has one?
And where is your life?
Right there. Lonnie, you got a second?
Can I grab the mic real quick? I got a phone. Which one is mine?
I think the top one is yours. I believe it is because into the here. Let me double check you don't take mine.
This
Mine's
is my wife, Lonnie.
excuse me.
Hi. Nice to meet you. I'm Rhea. Sally, you're late. Alicia. Hi.
That's it. Thank you for your service. All right. Same to you. Congratulations. And hi, Lonnie. I'm Carl from Channel 3. Nice to meet you guys, and good luck. Keep up the good work down there in Boston.
Lonnie, can you stand close to the sergeant so this way you can
Get the mic.
Yeah. And he just told us that he helped him create those jackets. And where did that all come from?
He's the good storyteller.
That's not the way it happened. We were sitting in the kitchen, and my wife got a piece of paper and a pencil, and she started sketching out U.S. wings. She sketched out the logo, she drew the logo, she erased it, she redrew it, she did the whole thing. You know, my wife is a true introvert. You know, she doesn't get out in public, she doesn't talk to people. But Lonnie owns U.S. Wings. She's the president of the company. You know, I'm just a CEO.
Today, to see your husband finally, after all these years, get what you so desperately deserve. And now you have this new version of your life with the U.S. Oh, I mean, there's a lot going on here. It's awesome. How do you feel about all that?
It's an honor. It's a very interesting story because honestly, I didn't really realize he didn't have the actual physical medal. It's just got the documents hanging in the office. And he never shared that with me. They're giving me the medal 40-some years later. I was like, wow. So it's an absolute honor and it's wonderful.
And being in business together.
That's a perk.
How do you spell your first name?
L-A-N-I.
And it's obviously the same last name.
Very good. Nobody has a jacket though here, huh? No one's got a jacket on, or
Yeah.
I was just thinking maybe there was
Are you
something.
guys headed back?
Yes, we're going over on Heinz Hill. It'd be great for you guys to come down there. Everybody's welcome. We're having cake, we're having sandwiches, soda, and our offices are there. And we have maybe about 10,000 jackets there.
Oh, that's all? Okay. Well,
We'll try we'll try to see one at least. What and all the medals are where now? Someone's got all the medals? Your daughter?
My daughter does.
Okay. And are you going to display them somewhere so we can kind of get?
Up in Wings. We can do that at these Wings. Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. Might as well because.
Well, U.S. Wings, if you go up
How far is it?
to Heinz Hill, go up 91 to Heinz Hill, which is right at the top of the hill.
Right.
Make a left, go all the way down. It's on the right-hand side, right before you get into Boston
So
Heights.
it's a direct shot.
Yeah. And then you take the interstate, and you go back to Cleveland.
Perfect. Okay.
Heinz Hill is what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's marked. The building is marked as such.
U.S. Wings, yes. You won't miss it. Believe me. And we have this big sheet cake there with the Purple Heart. And that was my wife's idea there too.
See, you need to talk more. You need to talk.
Oh, she does. Believe me, when I get home.
I was going to say, probably just to you, right? How about a nice shot of your family that's up here? Let's get everybody together.
They just left. Did they really? Yeah. Okay.
She definitely tops her up.
Well, I think it's a girl thing.
It is. She lays out the next day's orders for me.
I'm all about that.
Can you video?
And Dave, could you? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get one with them. I just want to get one with the Sarge. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks, bro.
All right. You are. We're ready. We needed some air support. Not for me.
Let's all go down to my office for lunch.
Thank you. Got one in.
You do a really nice job.
So you didn't know